Kana Hopnapi relatives, Mbiwa, Tahushka, Obi Miha. What's good, relatives? Hope everyone is having a good morning today. So today I'm back again with another video doing the family history. We're back into the Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina family history. And today I'm doing a special request from one of my followers that I've been conversating with. We're going to look at her family history. So she did say it was cool to go ahead and go over this, the family history that's showing up in her lineage. All right, relatives. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, here we go. So the first family that's showing up in her lineage is the Oxendine family out of North Carolina. And I believe they were in Virginia as well. Okay. It says John Oxendine, born in February 1693-94, was called John Figaro Mulatto on November 18, 1719, when Judith Bowling, servant of Anne Holt, came into Northumberland County, Virginia court and swore that he was the father of the child she was lately brought to bed with. He was the mulatto servant of Anne Holt, called John Oxendine, alias Figaro, on January 6, 1723-24, when he sued his mistress for his freedom from his indenture. William Widely and his wife Elizabeth testified on his behalf, and the court ruled on January 20th, 1724-25, that he should have been free from any service due his mistress in February 1723-24 at the age of 31. Then it says on December 16, 1725, John Hudnall sued him in court for a debt of 1,000 pounds of tobacco. He admitted to the debt on July 26, 1726, and was allowed until the following June to pay it. He was living in Northumberland County in the 1730s when the birth dates were recorded for his children Benjamin, Jenny, Clark, and John. Says he was living in Bladen County, North Carolina on August 27, 1753, when John Johnson Jr. Entered 100 acres whereon John Oxendine was living. He was called John Oxendine Sr. When his improvements on the east side of Drowning Creek were mentioned in the March 5th, 1759, Bladen County land entry of his son John Oxendine. It says on November 28, 1758, the Bladen County Court recommended him to the General Assembly as a person to be excused from paying taxes. It says his wife may have been Sarah Oxendine, who was a white head of household in Bladen County in 1770. Taxable on William Tanner, a white man. John's children were Benjamin, born April 12, 1733, sued in Cumberland County, North Carolina, court by William Hodges on April 18, 1758. Then we got Jenny, born February 14, 1735. We got Clark, born November 28, 1736. Then we got John, born June 10, 1739. Entered 100 acres on the east side of Drowning Creek on March 5th, 1759, which included the improvement of John Oxendine Sr. He was living in South Carolina on February 25th, 1773, when he was presented by the Court of General Sessions for retailing liquor without a license. He was taxable in Christchurch Parish, South Carolina, from 1786 to 1795, on 2 slaves in 1786, and on 6 slaves in 1794. It says, and head of a Christchurch Parish, Charleston, South Carolina household of 2 white males and 3 slaves in 1790. Then we got Charles, born, say, 1741. Next, we got Cudworth, a taxable mulatto in Bladen County in 1768 and 1769. Head of a Liberty County, South Carolina household of 8 other free in 1800. And a Marion District household of 6 other free in 1810. Says he was living in Georgetown District, South Carolina, near the Great Petey River on April 6, 1792, when John Sanders recorded a plat for land adjoining his. He and Archmac, or Archibald Oxendine, were among the free persons of color of present-day Liberty and Marlborough counties, South Carolina, who petitioned the legislature to repeal the discriminatory tax against free Negroes on April 20th, 1794. Others who petitioned include the Evans, Gibson, Hewlin, Shoemaker, Turner, and Sweat families. And you can find that in the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. And it says Archibald Oxendine, born before 1776, was head of an Overton County, Tennessee household of 8 free colored in 1820. All right, let's keep it moving. Then we got Jenny Oxendine, born February 14, 1735, may have been identical to June Oxendine, mother of Charity Oxendine and grandmother of Harry Oxendine, who were bound to Thomas White when Charity had 2 illegitimate children in Bladen County. White sold their labor to Thomas Ingalls, who left North Carolina with Charity and her 2 children and claimed them as slaves in Mississippi. However, Thomas and Anna Ard of Bladen County, North Carolina, moved to Mississippi and recognized them there. They hired lawyers, William Bridges, and testified at her trial that Charity was born a free person in Bladen County, that her mother, a free person of color named June Oxendine, had lived at the house of Anna Ard's father, and that Charity's father had also been free. Charity won her case, but her son, Harry Oxendine's lawyer, Peter Van Dorn of Claiborne County, Mississippi, failed to expeditiously prosecute his suit for his freedom in 1809. And Ingalls took him away to New Orleans in the winter of 1811 to avoid the suit. Harry sued in New Orleans and also won his case. He was described as a yellow man by someone who knew him to be free, and as a sunburned brown complexioned man by a man who thought him to be a slave. All right, and then it says Thomas Ard was, excuse me, it says Thomas Ard was head of a Robeson County household of 14 whites and 6 slaves in 1790, 9 whites and 10 slaves in Liberty Marion District, South Carolina in 1800, and a resident of Jefferson County, Mississippi in 1810. Says June was the mother of Charity, born, say, 1750. Charles Oxendine, born, say, 1741, received a patent for 150 acres northeast of Drowning Creek in Bladen County on October 23rd, 1767. He was a mixed blood, taxable in Bladen County from 1766 to 1768, and a mulatto taxable in 1770 and 1771. He entered another 200 acres in Robeson County, bordering his land by 2 land entries of 100 acres each on January 22nd and September 23rd, 1793. Then it says on November 23rd, 1797, he made an unsuccessful claim for payment for 3 steers he provided the army commanded by General Rutherford. He was head of a Robeson County household of 11 other free in 1790. He made a September 7th, 1808, Robeson County, by which he left 150 acres to his son David and 200 acres in a grist mill to his daughters. His children were. That would be Benjamin, executor of his father's will, head of a Robeson County household of 1 other free in 1790, 1 other free and a white woman in 1800, 2 other free in 1810, and one free colored in 1820. The county sold 150 acres of his land for debt on January 4th, 1809. All right, let's keep it moving. John, head of a Robeson County household of 1 other free in 1790. He entered 100 acres on the north side of Drowning Creek on June 18, 1794, and sold land by deed proved in Robeson County on January 1st, 1810. He was head of a Cumberland County household of 6 other free in 1800 and 9 in 1810. He married Margaret Maynor, October 30th, 1810, Cumberland County bond. All right, next we got Charles, head of a Robeson County household of 1 other free in 1790, 3 in 1800, 4 in 1810, and 5 free colored in 1820. He was the 11th company detached from the Robeson County Regiment in the War of 1812, and was probably the Charles Oxendine who was indicted for assault and battery and fined $15 by the Robeson Court in 1837. Since he was unable to pay his fine as a free Negro, he was liable to be hired out by the sheriff. He fought this judgment in the Supreme Court of North Carolina on the grounds that the law unconstitutionally discriminated against free persons of color. It said he had the help of 2 eminent Fayetteville lawyers, U.S. Senator Robert Strange and George E. Badger. And it says later, Secretary of the Navy and a Whig senator. He was an 81-year-old mulatto counted in the 1850 census for the upper district of Robeson County, with 80-year-old wife Priscilla, a farmer with $130 real estate. All right, next we got Jesse, entered 100 acres east of Drowning Creek and north of Mill Branch in Robeson County on January 22nd, 1793. He was head of a Robeson County household of 4 other free in 1800 and 8 in 1810. He purchased land by deed proved in Robeson County on July 7th, 1801. And next we got Moses. Then we have Aaron, born after 1775, head of a Sumter District, South Carolina household of 5 other free in 1810, 9 free colored in 1820, and 11 in 1830. Then we got David, head of a Robeson County household of 1 other free in 1800, 6 in 1810, and 6 free colored in Jackson County, Tennessee in 1820. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we got Nancy, born about 1765, living in South Carolina in 1795. When the July 25th issue of the North Carolina Central and Fayetteville Gazette offered a $10 reward to deliver to the subscriber in Georgetown a musty servant woman named Nancy Oxendine. She's a stout wench of a light complexion, about 30 years old. It is supposed she has been elks away by her brother and sister. The latter lives in Fayetteville. All right, then it says her brother John and sister Betsy live in Cumberland County. All right, next we got Betsy, born, say, 1766. Mary, perhaps the Polly Oxendine, who was a 36 to 45-year-old head of a Cumberland County household of 3 free colored in 1820. And we got Catherine, and we got Sarah. And then it says Charity Oxendine, born, say, 1750, had 2 illegitimate children in Bladen County. She and her children were born to Thomas White, who sold their labor to Thomas Ingalls, who left North Carolina with Charity and her 2 children and claimed them as slaves in Mississippi. She was the mother of Henry, head of a Claiborne County household of 5 free persons of color in 1816, perhaps the Henry Oxendine who was counted as white in Pike County, Mississippi in 1840, over the age of 80 years. All right, next we got Moses Oxendine was head of a Robeson County household of 3 other free in 1810 and 7 free colored in 1820. His September 20th, 1856 Robeson County will was proved in August 1857. He left 31 acres to his daughter Savannah and named her son Archibald. His daughter was Savannah, mother of Archibald Oxendine. All right. Next, we got Betty Oxendine, born about 1766, was living in the Cumberland County in October 1786 when the court ordered that her child, Nance Oxendine, be bound out. She was the mother of John, born about 1782, a mulatto-based-born child, no parent named when he was ordered bound to Neil McRaney by the October 28, 1786 Cumberland County Court. Then next we got Nance, born about 1787, a mulatto girl about 18 months old, who was ordered bound to James Dyer Esquire by the October 28, 1788 Cumberland County Court. All right. Next we have Henry Oxendine, born, say, 1765, was head of a Richmond County household of 5 other free in 1790. On June 22nd, 1790, he entered 100 acres in Richmond County on Powell's Branch, a rocky fork of Hitchcock Creek. The April 1792 Richmond County Court called him Henry Oxendine when it ordered the sheriff to sell his land to satisfy a judgment against him by Thomas Dockery, Esquire. And he was called Henry Oxendine when he married Sarah Collins in Richmond County between December 1st, 1788 and December 31st, 1789. Says he was head of a Robeson County household of 5 free colored in 1820. He may have been the father of. We got Charles, head of a Marion District, South Carolina household of 5 other free in 1810. And then it says other members of the family were Bryant, left a non-cupulative will in Robeson County on February 11th, 1836, by which he left his unnamed wife all his property. Then we got David, head of a Robeson County household of 2 free colored in 1820. Then we got Hector, killed by the White Home Guard in Robeson County near the end of the Civil War in May of 1865. He was suspected of helping General Sherman when his army marched through Robeson County. All right, then it says endnotes. Margaret Maynor was probably the daughter of John Maynor, head of a Sampson County household of 1 other free in 1790 and 4 in Cumberland County in 1810. Then we have Jesse Maynor, born about 1786. Isaac Maynor, born about 1791, and Stephen Maynor, born October 19th, 1812, were mulatto or colored children bound apprentices in Cumberland County. All right, so that was the Oxendine family, and again, this is a special request for one of my subscribers. So that's the Oxendine family. All right, so the other family that she would like for me to do is going to be the Perkins family. So let me just get to them real quick here. Let's see. All right, I think we're here. All right, here we go. All right, relatives. So this one is going to be the Perkins family. All right, so Esther Perkins, born say 1710, was in Accomack County on December 8, 1730, when Thomas Blair, gentleman, her master, paid her fine for having a bastard child. Esther died before June 1st, 1748, when her son Jacob was bound apprentice in Accomack County. Mulatto boy, son of Esther Perkins, deceased. Excuse me. It says she was a free mulatto living on the lands of James Gibson, deceased, with her children Joshua, about 18 or 19 years of age, George, about 2 years younger than Joshua, and Keziah, about 2 years younger than George, who had been bound to Gibson by the Accomack County Court and made a crop of tobacco, corn, and flax on the land in 1751. Then it says Esther's children were Anne, born, say, 1726, Darky, born about 1728, Joshua, born about 1732, George, born about 1734, Keziah, born about 1736. All right, next we got Jacob, born December 1745, a mulatto boy, son of Esther Perkins, deceased, aged 2 years last Christmas, bound as an apprentice shoemaker to George Bundick Jr. on June 1st, 1748, and then bound instead to James Gibson. Then we got Arcadia, born about 1746, a 6-year-old mulatto bound to George Hoyetl on January 29th, 1752. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we got Anne Perkins, born, say, 1726, was granted a patent for land in Bladen County, North Carolina, on April 25th, 1767, and 100 acres on Beaver Dam Branch of the Raft Swamp on March 22nd, 1772. She sold 50 acres on a branch of Raft Swamp on December 12, 1768, and sold another 100 acres on Beaver Dam branch of Raft Swamp to William Lowry, son of James Lowry, on February 18, 1775. She was taxable in Bladen County on 2 mulattoes in 1771. Her son Jordan Perkins and Thomas Sweat. She was the mother of, says Jordan, born, say, 1758. Olive, born, say, 1762. Married Ephraim Sweat, according to the April 18th, 1811, Opelousas, Louisiana marriage bond of their son Gideon Sweat. And then we got Nancy, born before 1776, head of a St. Landry Parish household of 6 free colored in 1820. All right, let's keep it moving. Then we got Dorcas Perkins, Esther, born about 1728, was 6 years old in September 1734 when she was bound apprentice to James Gibson in Accomack County Court. Dorcas, or another daughter of Esther, may have been the mother of the members of the Perkins family who remained in Accomack County, and it says they were Jimmy or James, born about 1748, a 4-year-old mulatto, bound as an apprentice shoemaker to George Hoyettle in Accomack County in 1752. Then we got Joshua, born about 1752, a member of Captain Windsor Brown's Virginia Company of Troops in Williamsburg, when Brown advertised in the June 6, 1777 issue of the Virginia Gazette that he had deserted. Brown described him as a mulatto about 5 feet 6 or 7 inches high, 24 or 25 years old, and is a straight-made fella, had on a short striped jacket, a felt hat, bound round with French lace. It says he was in Captain Thomas Edmunds' muster of the 15th Virginia Regiment in Morristown on July 1st, 1777, listed as being sick in Virginia, but he was present in the muster at White Plains on September 1st, 1778. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we got Joshua, born, say, 1754, a seaman in the Revolution. Scarborough Bloxham, a midshipman aboard the Accomac, testified that Joshua enlisted in the war, served on board the vessel during the Revolution, and was discharged. He received bounty land warrant number 93 for 100 acres, and Sally Perkins received warrant number 8241 for his services. His only heir, Sally Perkins, applied for his pension in Accomack County on March 29, 1834. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we got Nimrod, born, say, 1755, bound as an apprentice shoemaker to William Sacker James in Accomack County on August 28, 1765. He was taxable in Accomack County in 1785 and 1790, and mulatto taxable in Northampton County in 1787 and 1788, and head of a Accomack County household of 2 other free and a white woman in 1800. It says Zadok Bailey testified in Accomack County Court on July 1st, 1830, that he frequently went on board the Navy vessel Accomack and had seen Nimrod Perkins serving as a drummer. And then it says Nimrod was about 72 years old on July 31st, 1832, when he testified in Accomack County Court that he enlisted as a drummer on board the galley Diligence from 1777 until 1781. And that he had received a Virginia military land warrant for 100 acres. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we have Caddy, born, say, 1758. Then we have Abraham, born, say, 1760, a free Negro, taxable in Accomack County from 1798 to 1812, head of a St. George Parish, Accomack County household of 7 other free in 1800 and 8 in 1810. Next, we have Adam, born, say, 1765. Next, we have Esther, born about 1773, ordered bound out by the church wardens of Accomack Parish in Accomack County to Leah James on May 30th, 1775, head of a St. George Parish, Accomack County household of 3 other free in 1800. She registered in Accomack County about 1832, born about 1773, yellow complexion, 5 feet 5 3/4 high, born free in Accomack County. All right. Next, we have Oliver, a free mulatto, ordered bound out by the church wardens of Accomack Parish in Accomack County to Shadrick Bailey on May 30th, 1775. And then we got Comfort, head of a St. George's Parish, Accomack County household of 5 other free in 1800. All right. Just keep it moving. Next, we have Joshua Perkins, born about 1732, was 2 years old, says no parent or race indicated, on September 1734, when he was bound to James Gibson in Accomack County Court. He owned land in Bladen County, North Carolina, on a province line, adjoining land entered by Benjamin Davis before October 20th, 1761. He purchased 125 acres in Bladen County on Wilkerson Swamp, a branch of the Little Petey River, on November 1st, 1768, and sold this land on April 26, 1770. This was part of the tract of 250 acres, the other half owned by Robert Swett in 1754, and sold by Philip Chavis in 1768, and he was granted 100 acres on Wilkerson Swamp on December 22nd, 1769. And it says these lands are on the present-day border of Robeson County near the county line of Dillon and Marlborough County, South Carolina. It says he was a mulatto taxable in Bladen County with his wife and sons, George and Isaac, in 1768 and 1769. He was taxable in Washington County, Tennessee in 1787, called Joshua Perkins Sr., but not in 1788. Perhaps because he was over age. All right. Then it says Joshua and his children's race and color were described in detail in the 1858 Johnson County, Tennessee trial, in which his great-grandson Jacob F. Perkins sued John R. White for slander because he called him a free Negro. It says the race of Joshua's great-grandchildren was not self-evident since Joshua and his descendants had married white or light-skinned women. 18 elderly deponents, many who had known the family when they lived near the Petey River in South Carolina, where Joshua had apparently moved after selling his Bladen County land, deposed that they had known Joshua, or Jock, and his children, George, Jacob, Joshua, Isaac, Lewis, and Polly. He kept racehorses and a ferry by Rowan's Creek and associated with decent, respectable white people like Landon Carter. He married Mary Polly Black in 1753. She was fair-skinned, called a Scotch woman. He moved back to North Carolina in 1785 and died on April 10th, 1801. And let's see. It says the Johnson County Court decided that Jacob F. Perkins was indeed a free Negro, but it considered deposition from 59 persons before making this decision. The deposition proved the physical description of many members of the family, as well as a description of their life in the white community. 16 of 22 elderly deponents who had actually seen old Joshua Perkins said he was of African descent. Dodge the hijack. Can't say whether full-blooded. The nose African, believe they were Africans, always claimed to be Portuguese, all married white women. Black man, hair nappy, some called Jacob, his son, a Portuguese, and some a Negro. I helped Jock shell corn. He was said to be a hatter. Knew old Jock, Joshua, in North Carolina on Petey. Right black or nearly so, hair kinky, like a common Negro. Then it says, however, 6 persons who had seen old Joshua Perkins said he was dark-skinned but not African. They seem to have argued in their deposition that the Perkins family must have been something other than African, Portuguese, or Indian, since they relatively affluent and had good relations with their white neighbors. Dark-skinned man, resembled an Indian more than a Negro. He was generally called a Portuguese. Living well, kept company with everybody, kept racehorses, and John Watson rode them. He was known of the Portuguese race. 4 of his sons served in the Revolution. Jacob and George drafted against Indians. They came from and kept a ferry in South Carolina. They kept company with decent white people and had many visitors. I taught school at Perkins Schoolhouse. They were Portuguese, associated white peoples, clerked at elections and voted, and had all privileges. All right, let's keep it moving. Some who testified in favor of the Perkins family had never seen Joshua Perkins and seemed to have been genuinely confused about the family's ancestry. I was well acquainted with Jacob Perkins, one of Joshua's sons, a yellow man said to be Portuguese. They do not look like Negroes. I have been about his house a great deal and nursed for his wife. She was a little yellow and called the same race, had blue eyes and black hair, was visited by white folks. All right, let's keep it moving. It says one of the deponents, 77-year-old Daniel Stout, explained very simply how people of African descent could have been treated well by their white neighbors. Never heard him called Negro. People in those days said nothing about such things. Then it says, according to the deposition, Joshua and Polly's children were George, born March 26, 1754 in Liberty County, South Carolina. Jacob, born, say, 1756. Isaac, born, say, 1758. Joshua, born in November 1759. Then we got Lewis, born, say, 1762. Perhaps the Lewis Perkins, who was taxable in Carter County, Tennessee in 1805. He was said to be a dark-skinned man with a red complexion. A 65-year-old woman deposed in 1858 that she had known Lewis and that Lewis had kinky hair. And a 69-year-old man deposed that Lewis was dark and bushy-headed. All right, next we got Polly, perhaps identical to Mary Perkins, born before 1776, head of a St. Landry's Parish, Louisiana household of 2 free colored in 1820, mother of Edie Perkins, according to the October 10th, 1825, Opalasis license for her daughter's marriage to James F. Carr. Her daughter, Edith Perkins, married Stephen Goen of South Carolina on November 17th, 1826. And Opalasis, then it says James Carr, born 1776 through 94, was head of a St. Landry's Parish household of 2 free colored in 1820. All right, let's keep it moving. George Perkins, born about 1734, was a mulatto servant charged in Accomack County Court with absenting himself from the service of Andrew Gilchrist, a minister of James Gibson, on August 28, 1751. He may have been a George Perkins who was in the Berkeley County, South Carolina detachment of Captain Benjamin Elliott, drafted November 1759 and discharged January 8, 1760. In the same list with Carter, a free Negro, Gideon Bunch, Ephraim Bunch, James Bunch, and Jacob Bunch. He was living in Craven County, North Carolina, when he was acquitted of an unspecified crime by the October 1761 Craven County Court. He was ordered to pay a little over 12 pounds damage to Edmund Morgan on June 13, 1769. Says he was taxable. He was a taxable head of his own black Craven County household in 1769 and head of a Craven County household of 4 other free in 1790. He was called a husbandman on February 27, 1771, when he purchased 200 acres in Craven County on the west side of the Cahooga Creek for 60 barrels of tar. He sold half of this land and mortgaged the other half for 50 pounds on October 3rd, 1774, and was called a free Negro. When the deed was proved in September 1785, Craven County Court, on December 7th, 1782, he gave his son Isaac Carter 50 acres on the south side of the Neuse River and west side of the Cahooga Creek at the head of Long Creek in Craven County for fatherly love, and sold his son Isaac 100 acres on the south side of the Neuse River and west side of Cahooga for 50 pounds on August 11, 1787. He was surety for the February 3rd, 1786 Craven County marriage of Sarah Perkins to Isaac Carter. He was the father of. All right. We got Isaac born about 1756, head of a Craven County household of 2 other free in 1790, and 2 free colored in Craven County in 1820. He married Deborah Goddard on March 24, 1784, Craven County bond. She was named in the 1803 Craven County will of her father, George Goddard. Isaac purchased for £1 of rights to the timber on the 100 acres where he was then living, sold by his father, George Carter, to Bartholomew Howard on October 3rd, 1774. He entered land on the south side of the Neuse River and the west side of McCock's Branch on December 9th, 1813, and was taxable on 250 acres and no polls in Craven County in 1815. He sold 40 acres on the south side of Bay River and west side of Trent Creek to Isaac Carter for $50 on February 3rd, 1827. It says he was living with his wife Deborah, born about 1763, when he made a declaration in Craven County Court to obtain a Revolutionary War pension on May 13th, 1829. He testified that he enlisted for 3 years in May 1778 and was granted pension certificate number 4666 on November 30th, 1818. He still had 100 acres of land in his possession, and included with his pension application was a copy of his deed of January 30th, 1827, by which he sold 150 acres on the south side of the Neuse River and head of Hancock's Creek near the head of the McCock's Branch to Isaac Carter. And then it says Joseph Syock testified that from a long and intimate acquaintance with the general conduct and character of the said Isaac Perkins, we do not hesitate to declare that, though a man of color, we do believe him to be honest in principle, to practice anything like a fraud. His lawyer Samuel Garrett called him a Negro man, an old soldier of the Revolutionary Army, when he applied for the restoration of his pension. His May 18, 1830 Craven County will, proved in August 1830, left his land to his wife Deborah to be divided at her death between the 3 sons of his nephew George Carter, William Martin, and George Carter, with the balance of his property to be divided between his sister Sarah Carter's children, William Isaac, Methable, and Sarah. George Carter, Edmund Carter, Jacob Dove, William Dove, Stephen Goddard, Theophilus George, and Perry Johnston were buyers at the sale of the estate, which amounted to about $150 on September 4th, 1830. In May 1842, his heirs petitioned for partition of the 100 acres of land, which was located on Cahooga Creek, adjoining Anthony Brown and Peter Goddard. All right, then it says Sarah Married Isaac Carter, February 3rd, 1786, Craven County bond, George Perkins surety. All right, next we got Katie Perkins, born, say, 1758, was the mother of George Perkins, who was ordered bound by the overseers of the poor to Sarah Bradford by the Accomack County Court to be a farmer on January 31st, 1792. She may have been the mother of Stephen and Lot Perkins, who were ordered bound to Caleb Harrison to be farmers on March 1st, 1792. And it says on March 27th, Sarah Bradford brought a case against John Mears, George's former master, for detaining George in his service. After a hearing, the court ordered the overseer of the poor to bind George to Elizabeth Bradford. Then it says Katie was the mother of. We got George Sr., registered in Accomack County about 1832, born about 1780, a dark yellow 5'8" 3/4", born free in Accomack County. Then we got Stephen, born February 1st, 1780, listed in the register, certified in Accomack County on September 29th, 1807, a dark mulatto color or brown, 5 feet 5 inches, dark hair, dark eyes. Then we got Lot, born April 22nd, 1785, listed in the register, certified in Accomack County on September 29th, 1807, dark mulatto, 5 feet 6.5 inches, born free. All right, let's keep them moving, relatives. Next, we have Adam Perkins, born, say, 1765, was taxable in Norfolk County from 1791 to 1812, called a Negro in 1797, a laborer on Western Branch in the list of free Negroes and mulattoes in 1801, head of a household with males Nathan and Wright Perkins, and females Annis, Betsy, and Lucretia Perkins, called a mulatto in 1802, taxable on a slave aged 12 to 16 in 1803, and was head of a Norfolk County household of 6 other free in 1810. He purchased 5 acres in Norfolk County at the head of the western branch of the Elizabeth River for £7 10 shillings on September 4, 1790. Purchased another 7 acres adjoining Thomas Archer and John Weaver for £14 on November 1st, 1797. It says with James Newton as witness. And purchased another 11 acres at the head of the western branch adjoining John Cooper's from John and Mary Weaver for £40 by deed, proved in Norfolk County on December 9th, 1805. And it says he, making his mark, made a March 20th, 1815 Norfolk County will, proved May 15th, 1815, by which he lent his plantation, where he was then living to his wife Anne during her widowhood, and then to be divided among his 4 children. Son Nathaniel, the plantation where his father was living, son Wright, his swampland, and all his personal property divided among Nathaniel, Wright, Betsy, and Lucretia Perkins. And it says he appointed Nathaniel executor. Ananias was a black taxable on 2 horses in Western Branch in Norfolk County in 1815 to 1817. It says Adam and Ananias were the parents of. All right, first we got Betsy, born, say, 1792, married William Bass, November 2nd, 1812, Norfolk County bond, Adam Perkins surety. Next we got Nathan, born about 1792, a black male, taxable in the Western Branch in Norfolk County from 1815 to 1817. He had a white woman named Cecilia Peake, were indicted by the Norfolk County Superior Court on April 10th, 1822 for adultery and fornication. They were each fined $10. On May 17th, 1823, he acknowledged a deed for sale for his interest in 5 acres of land in Norfolk County. Then it says on September 19th, 1825, he was in a list of free Negroes hired out by the sheriff to pay their taxes for the year 1823. He was registered in Norfolk County on July 15th, 1833. Age 41 years, 5 feet 7, Indian complexion, Indian descent. All right, next we have Wright, born about 1799, registered in Norfolk County on November 24th, 1831. Age 32, 6 feet 3/4 inches, a mulatto born free, and he registered again on July 15th, 1833, after the Not Negro law was passed. Age 34, 5 feet 11 and a half, Indian complexion, man of Indian descent. Then it says on August 18th, 1823, the Norfolk County Court certified that he and William and Willis Bass Jr. were of good character and granted them permission to keep a firelock. All right, then we got Lucretia. All right, next it says George Perkins, born on March 22nd, 1754 in Liberty County. That would be present-day Marion County, South Carolina. Applied for a pension in Lawrence County, Kentucky on March 15th, 1834. He was living in South Carolina when he entered the service in Charleston and served four tours of 10 days each in the militia under Lieutenant Richard Weddington in 1780. He lived for about 26 years on the Watauga River in the part of North Carolina, which later became Washington County, Tennessee, and lived in Lawrence County, Kentucky for another 21 years. A copy of his April 5th, 1780 Bladen County marriage bond to Keziah Manning with John Cade, one of the captains he served under, as a bondsman, which included in Keziah's application for a widow's pension. And it says he was taxable in Washington County in 1788 and received a grant for 100 acres in Washington County on Little Doe Creek near Rowan's Creek from the state of North Carolina on November 17, 1790, and another 100 acres on the Watauga River on October 16, 1797. All right, give me 1 second, relatives. He purchased 200 acres in Washington County, Tennessee on Little Doe Creek of the Watauga River on May 24, 1793. He sold 2 acres of his land on October 21, 1795, and another 100 acres on December 28, 1797. Sold 100 acres on the Watauga River on February 10th, 1804, 100 acres on Rowan's Creek on November 26, 1804, 50 acres on Little Doe Creek on August 26, 1805, and another 50 acres in this area on April 10th, 1807. It says he died in Lee County, Iowa on November 16th, 1840, and Keziah died on August 12th, 1849. According to their only surviving child, Anne Graves, their children were Anna Graves, born about 1781, 77 years old in 1858, when she made a deposition in Missouri for the Johnson County, Tennessee trial of Jacob F. Perkins. And then it says Stephen, born September 6, 1783, purchased 190 acres on the Doe River on September 12, 1806, and sold his land on August 10th the same year. He married Catherine Suma and had 11 children. He was the head of a Campbell County, Tennessee household of 8 free colored in 1830. All right, relatives, let's keep it moving. Next, we got Jacob Perkins. Born, say, 1758, was taxable on 200 acres in Washington County, Tennessee, in 1787, 1788, and 1789. He purchased 200 acres on the Little Doe Creek of the Watauga River in Washington County, Tennessee on May 11, 1791. He was a school teacher who married Nancy Graves, daughter of John Graves, a constable, and his wife Susan, a white woman. Johnson Hampton testified for the pension application of his son Jacob Perkins that Jacob Perkins came to Carter County, Tennessee about 1802, and that Jacob told him he had lived in South Carolina near the Little Petey River during the time of the Revolution. Jacob served in the Revolution under General Marion and was a respectfully upright, honest man and was considered by his neighbors. John J. Wilson, who helped to bury him, testified that Jacob and wife were both members of the Baptist Church. He was a respectable man and a good citizen, and was regarded by his neighbors. And it says his son Jacob Perkins testified that Jacob Perkins also served several tours against the Indians after coming to Carter County. He was married to Ann Graves by Jonathan Mulkey, a Washington County preacher, while the county was still a territory of North Carolina. He further testified that his father died on April 4th, 1819, and his mother lived with him until her death on November 8th, 1842. James Bradley deposed that he knew Jacob's children, Joseph, Sally, Esther, Joshua, Amos, John, Susan, and Keziah. In his March 22nd, 1819 Carter County, Tennessee will, he named his wife Nancy and their children Joseph, Joshua, Amos, Jacob, John, Sarah, Esther, Keziah, Lydia, and Susanna. And he asked that land he owned in Burke County, North Carolina, be sold and divided between William and Benjamin, no last name mentioned, the two children of his daughter Sarah. All right, it says his children were Joseph entered land on Cranberry Creek in 1827 with his brothers Joshua, Amos, Jacob, and John Perkins. They were the original owners of the Cranberry Iron Forge in Watauga County. Then we got Sarah, mother of William and Benjamin Graves. We got Esther. And we have Joshua, born in 1796, married Elizabeth Kite. And they were the parents of Jacob F. Perkins, plaintiff in the 1858 Johnson County suit. Then Jacob F. Perkins was a school teacher, clerked at elections, voted, and associated with whites. And we got Amos. Next, we got Jacob, born about 1799, about 53 years old on October 16th, 1852, when he testified for a survivor's pension. He was a school teacher. Then we got John, then we got Susan, then we got Keziah, then we got Lydia. All right. Next, we got Isaac Perkins. Born, say, 1758, received a grant for 100 acres in Washington County on Campbell's Creek from the state of North Carolina on November 17, 1790, and was living in Granville County, South Carolina, on January 19, 1796, when he sold his land to Jacob Perkins. He purchased 100 acres in Greenville District, South Carolina, on September 8, 1796, and sold 200 acres there in 1797. On March 29, 1798, he sold by two deeds a total of 500 acres of land in Greenville County on the waters of Gilden Creek of Enroley River, which was land he had been granted on December 1st, 1794. He was head of a Buncombe County, North Carolina household of 12 other free in 1800, 11 other free in Opelousas, Louisiana in 1810, living near Gilbert Sweat, and one free colored over 45 years of age in 1820. He married Hannah Sweat, according to the January 16, 1819 Opelousas courthouse marriage license of their son Stephen Perkins of South Carolina. And it says Isaac and Hannah's children were. We got George, born, say, 1785, married Polly Ashworth, daughter of James Ashworth, and Keziah Dial of South Carolina on December 4th, 1810, and was head of a St. Landry Parish household of 5 free colored in 1820 and 10 in 1830. Then we got Isaac, born, say, 1787, married Sarah Singleton, May 24th, 1810, St. Landry's Parish bond. And second, Mary Sweat, September 23rd, 1811, Opelousas marriage. He was head of a St. Landry's Parish household of 3 free colored in 1820. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we have Stephen, born, say, 1790, son of Isaac Perkins and Hannah Sweat, married Nancy Johnson, daughter of Isaac Johnson and Mary Willis, on January 16th, 1819, in Opelousas. Isaac Johnston, who was head of a Robeson County household on 1 other free in 1790, a descendant of the Johnson family of Northampton County, Virginia. Joseph Willis was a slave of Argathon Willis of Bladen County, who manumitted him and gave him considerable property. It says the manumission was approved by the North Carolina General Assembly in 1787. Joseph was a mulatto, taxable on 320 acres, 1 white free pole and 2 black slave poles in Captain Burns' Bladen County District in 1784, counted as white in 1790, head of a Chiraw District household of 1 male over 16 and 2 females, head of a St. Landry's Parish household of 13 other free and 7 slaves in 1810, and 11 free colored and 4 slaves in 1820. He was buried in 10 Mile Cemetery at Occupied Church in Lower Rapids Parish. Reverend Joseph Willis, 1764 to 1854, First Baptist preacher of the Word in Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River. All right. Next, we have Lewis, born, say, 1792, head of a St. Landry's Parish household of 4 free colored in 1820. Next, we have Joshua Perkins, born in November 1759 in present-day Marion County, South Carolina. Was taxable on 1 pole in Washington County, North Carolina, in 1788, called Joshua Perkins, Jr., in the same list as George Perkins and Gilbert Sweat. And he was taxable on 100 acres in 1791. Let's see, household of 7 other free in 1800. He married Mary Mixon, according to the October 2nd, 1810 Opelousas marriage of his daughter Sarah Perkins. He was head of Opelousas St. Landry's Parish, Louisiana household of 6 other free in 1810. 1 free colored over 45 years of age in 1820, and 1 over 55 years of age in 1830. And it says on May 25th, 1830, he was called a free man of color when he made a deposition for Gilbert Sweat, free man of color, in a case held in St. Landry's Parish, in which he testified that he would be 71 years old in November 1830, was born on the Little Petey River in what was then called Marion County, South Carolina, in the same area as Gilbert Sweat. About the year 1777, he helped Sweat run off with Frances Smith, wife of John Barney Taylor, They traveled the same route from South Carolina to North Carolina to Tennessee, to Big Black River, Mississippi, and finally to Louisiana about 1804. However, they sometimes did not see each other for several years at a time. On June 15th, 1837, when he was about 78 years old, his three daughters filed suit in court of probate of St. Landry's Parish to have a curator appointed to administer his estate because he was blind and supposedly feeble. Says they were Mary Perkins, wife of James Ashworth, Sarah Perkins, wife of Jesse Ashworth, and Elizabeth Perkins, wife of James Goins. He was living with his son Jordan Perkins at the time. The estate was said to contain considerable property, mainly cattle. The case was dismissed on April 3rd, 1840, apparently due to the death of Joshua. Then it says his children were. We got Elizabeth, born, say, 1787, married James Goins. He was born before 1776, head of a Opelasses Parish household of 3 other free in 1810 and 7 free colored in 1820. Then we got Jordan, born, say, 1789, married Jenny Goin on March 12, 1814 in Opelasses, and was head of a St. Landry's Parish household of 6 free colored in 1820. Then we got Sarah, born about 1791, daughter of Joshua Perkins and Mary Mixon, married Jesse Ashworth of South Carolina, son of James Ashworth Sr. and Keziah Dow, on October 2nd, 1810. Then James Ashworth Sr. was head of Apollos' household of 11 other free in 1810. Sarah Ashworth was a 59-year-old mulatto counted in the 1850 Caucasio Parish, Louisiana census. And it says Mary, born about 1796, daughter of Joshua and Mary Perkins, married James Ashworth Jr., son of James and Keziah Ashworth, on September 23rd, 1811, in St. Landry's Parish, Louisiana. And then it says endnotes. Esther Perkins may have been related to Isaac and Joshua Perkins, who owned land in Craven County, North Carolina, in 1738 and 1750, respectively. Isaac recorded a memorial for 100 acres on Reedy Creek in Craven County, South Carolina, on March 9, 1761, based on a plat of May 10, 1756. He was probably the Isaac Perkins, who was head of a Churraw District, South Carolina household of 1 white male over 16, 2 under 16, 1 white female, and 2 other free in 1790. Then we got Dorcas Perkins, apparently had at least 1 child. The January 27, 1746 session of the Accomack County Court recorded that the charges against her by the church wardens were abated due to her death. And it says Landon Carter was taxable on 3,716 acres in Washington County, Tennessee in 1795. Members of the Mixon family were in Craven County, North Carolina between 1737 and 1756 and were in Churraw District, South Carolina in 1790. All right, relatives. So that was the Perkins family. And again, kind of a lengthy one, but definitely some good information there. All right, yeah, so that was the Perkins family. All right, relatives. So the last one we're going to do here for the request from one of my subscribers is going to be the Wells family. So let's jump into it. It says Ann Wells, born, say, 1750, was a Northampton County, North Carolina taxable on an assessment of 105 pounds in 1780. She received a grant for 128 acres in Northampton County on Corduroy Swamp on October 9th, 1783. She was head of a Northampton County household of one black person, 12 to 50 years old, and 3 black persons less than 12 were over 50 years old in Elisha Webb District in 1786 for the state census, 6 other free in 1790, 5 in 1800, 6 in 1810, and 4 free colored in 1820. It says she was probably the mother of King, born 1776 through 94, head of a Northampton County household of 3 free colored in 1820. And then we got Anthony, charged with bastardy in Northampton County Court by Amy Allen on June 7th, 1820. All right, relatives, so that was the Wells family. Again, I did these families for one of my subscribers, a special request. So let me stop screen sharing. So it's kind of nice to, when you know your genealogy, that, you know, a lot of your family surnames come up in the same documentation. So that's why, again, it's important to do your genealogy. And to the subscriber that asked me, that I told I was going to do this for them, I appreciate you. Thank you again for subscribing to the channel and watching my videos. And for everyone else, if you'd like me to do your family's surnames, just leave me a comment after this video and I'll see what I can do. And again, one love to all of you, and I appreciate each and every one of you for watching my videos. And like I always say, I will see everyone next time. Later.